You're listening to Little Green Cheese, episode 80. Well, welcome back, Curd Nerds. I'm Gavin Weber, and this podcast is where you can learn about cheese making at home. Well, thanks for joining me again this week. Got some interesting cheesy questions from lots of curd nerds out there, and we've got one little news story. In fact, it's a little bit about a cheese mite. And funnily enough, this is called let me pronounce it right. Würchwitzer Mite Cheese, it's called. So, in a small town of Würchwitz, Germany, mites get locked into wooden boxes with a soft, unaged white cheese known as quark. Now, quark's a very simple cheese to make. In fact, I don't have a video tutorial about it, so I'll have to fix that. Anyway, back to the story. As the mites feast, they ripen the cheese, but even after they've completed their work, these microscopic arachnids aren't off the hook. Diners eat the cheese with the critters still covering the rind. Sounds like an interesting little cheese. Only a single company in this village makes milk benkays, or Würchwitzer mite cheese. While it's a centuries-old practice, the art of making milbenkays nearly disappeared until several townspeople made an effort to preserve it. Cheesemakers begin by seasoning balls or cylinders of dried quark with salt, caraway, and elderflower. Then they let the mites feed on the pieces for about 3 months, regularly turning and aerating the cheese. Although the mites' activity creates an unpleasant ammonia-like smell, they helpfully excrete enzymes that ripen the cheese into a nutty, slightly bitter finished product. Würchwitzer's cheese-making operations is the only organisation sanctioned by the government to make milbenkays, which is a legally protected name and tightly regulated due to the presence of live mites. Locals have certainly embraced this claim to fame. They built a statue of a cheese mite in the town centre. Now that's getting behind your local cheese, isn't it? Especially when it's covered in little arachnids that are secreting enzymes into your cheese. Sounds very interesting. In fact, it sounds very similar to a French cheese called mimolette. I do believe that they are balls of cheese which are heavily coloured by annatto, and they are fed to cheese mites, and they get these little pits in the rind as well. And I think that they may be some of those little beasties in there when the people eat mimolette cheese as well. So very interesting. Würchwitzer in Germany makes that cheese. Würchwitzer mite cheese. Hopefully I got the pronunciation right. Anyway, I got this story from Atlas Obscurica, which has a whole bunch of gastronomic delights and stories, and I'll put the link into the show notes. Now, I've kind of got things back to front today. I didn't tell you about things that I'm working on. Of course, I'm still working on my book. I managed to bash out, I think I'm up to 15,000 words at the moment, so not sure how many pages that is. That's a lot. So lots of words. I have still got to finish about 25 out of the 52 recipes. So what I'm having to do, and this, I don't know why I didn't write them down in the first place. I'm pretty sure I did write them down, but I just can't find the book that I wrote them down in. I got half the recipes in my handy dandy notepad, but unfortunately, I can't find the rest of them. So what I'm having to do is go back through my videos about the cheeses and basically transcribe them onto paper and then type them into my document, which will become my book. Keep calm and make more cheese. Um, yeah, a bit of fun and games going on there, but I'm slugging through it. So I'm doing about 2 recipes a day, so that should get us finished by, don't know, lots. What's that? 2 recipes a day, 25, 12 and a half days, but I don't do it every day. That's the thing. Anyway, we'll see. It'll be out soon enough. Just hold on, and you'll get a lovely cheese making book with some new recipes that you've seen since I wrote the first book back in 2012. So that's 6 years ago I wrote that book. That's amazing. And it still sells well today. That's the first version, Keep Calm and Make Cheese. On Thursday, I'm going to try and make a cheese, and it has Mexican origins, and it's called Oaxaca, which is spelled Oaxaca, Oaxaca. I think that's how you pronounce it. And it's a Mexican string cheese that is very similar to mozzarella in taste, but it basically you string it out as much as you can into thin strings and basically roll it into a ball. It looks like a tennis ball size, and then you just cut it and you eat it, and it's string cheese that's been wrapped into a ball. So pretty cool. So I'm going to try and make that on Thursday, which is a day after the show's been released. Anyway, now we've got some listener questions, and one of them may be a little bit involved. I've had to do some research because even though I've experienced this issue before, I didn't know there was a solution to it. So anyway, we'll talk about that in a second. But let's get on with the questions. Okay, the first voicemail this week is from Elaine, and Elaine just wants to say hello, and well, here's Elaine.
Hi, I'm Elaine Towler. Just joined your group, assigned to your website, etc. Just joined a cheese making at UK FP group, and a complete novice apart from the fact that I've actually made mozzarella for my kit, and that's about it. So looking forward to looking at your videos and getting involved. Thanks. Looks like a great site. Bye.
Oh, thanks, Elaine. Appreciate it, and welcome on board. I think you've probably signed up to the Little Green Cheese mailing list, and most of the things you'll get from there are your podcast episode notifications. You'll get a copy of the podcast text, and basically just got to click on the link and you'll get the download. Now, don't forget to also pop over to cheeseman.tv, that's the URL, and you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you'll get notified of all of the cheesy video content that I produce, and that should go to, you'll get an email about that as well. It'll be in your YouTube preferences on how you get different notifications. But fantastic, thank you. Well, you're actually one step ahead of most people who ask me questions, Elaine, and that is that you've actually made a cheese successfully. So that one step should help you on your way to confidence on making further cheeses down the road. Anyway, thanks very much for dropping by and saying g'day. All right, the next question is from Walt. And this question is a doozy. But anyway, I've had to do some research, and I think I found a solution. Anyway, over to Walt.
Hi, Gavin. first, thanks for all of the gifts that you give the cheese making community. I made a raw milk goat cheese in a tome style, and cutting it open, I have what appears to be a late stage blowout. It's not terrible, but clearly right through the middle of the cheese, sort of a little Grand Canyon is opened up. Yet the paste texture is excellent. The flavor is just excellent, and yet it's a bit unsightly, and it's not what I want. I have heard that one way to control that is by introducing I'm not quite sure technically what it is, but it's called lysozyme. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing that properly, but I've read that it gets introduced into a lot of cheese, commercial and otherwise, to keep late stage blowout from occurring. Have you ever used it? Have you heard of it being used? And as a home cheese maker, making typically 10 gallons at a time in terms of milk, would you have suggestions as to how I would use it, when it would be introduced to the milk, and in what quantities? Again, appreciate all that you do for the cheese making community.
Okay, thanks very much, Walt, for that doozy of a question. Now, lysozyme is it's an antibacterial antifungal that's in many things through it. Let me just see. It's a component of many animals and vegetables and that sort of thing. It's actually one of the strongest antibacterials and antibiotics that are found in the human body. It's also found in tears, saliva. It's also present in our spleen, lungs, kidneys, white blood cells, plasma, and breast milk. Not only does it have an antibacterial activity, it is also used to prevent a thing called butyric acid late blowing, which is what Walt is referring to. And that is due to a bacterium called Clostridium, spelled Clostridium, Clostridium. Now, this bacteria produces butyric acid, and it also produces carbon dioxide, and it produces hydrogen. And that's the reason for the crack in your massive, the Grand Canyon style cheese. Sometimes you can see that it'll also have, it'll look like eyes, small eyes as well. Now, it's the butyric acid that makes the cheese taste a bit funny. It makes the cheese unpalatable, and the blowing is caused by the gases, as I mentioned, by the Clostridia. The Clostridia bacterium ferments the sugars and the lactic acids, and therefore we need to kill it off. Even pasteurization and all the hygiene in the world can't get rid of this bacteria, or the which produces spores. Now, it's when the spores start, that's when the off-gassing and the acid production happens. So to kill that off, what we need to do is there's a product, and it's called Lysosac, and it's the lysozyme enzyme, and it's found in egg white protein. So the egg white protein, it comes in a powder. You can buy it as a product. The brand name is Lysolac, spelled Lysolac, Lysolac. And most good cheese making suppliers, I say most, I don't supply it because I've never come across it. They do sell it, and they sell it in 50 gram and usually 500 gram sizes. Now, what you actually do is make a 10% solution of the Lysolac. So you take a litre or a quart of water, and you add 100 grams of Lysolac, and then you add it directly to the warmed milk. And what this does is the Clostridia bacterium, they don't start to produce the gases and stuff until they have an anaerobic environment, so there's no air. So basically, then they start producing the gases and all that stuff. Now, what the lysolac does, it actually breaks down the cell walls of the bacterium and kills them off. Now, it's perfectly palatable. It doesn't affect the texture or the taste of your cheese. In fact, it'll probably improve it, especially if you're finding it late blown. Now, you're probably wondering what causes butyric acid late blown cheeses. And what it has been pinpointed down to is silage that has been fed to dairy animals. Now, usually in winter, silage is produced instead of hay. It contains more nutrients for cows, sheep, and probably goats as well. But I know that just from experience, living on a dairy farm, that when I was a kid, my dad used to make mountains of this stuff called silage. It was just green grass that was then placed under black plastic, and then it ferments. And there's lots of bacteria in it. And one of those bacteria, unfortunately, is the one that causes the late blow. So, where can you get it from, the lysolac? You can get it from Amazon. I'll put an Amazon link into the show notes. And that has a product you can ship it through. It gets shipped throughout the US. I think they do ship overseas as well. Some cheesemakers do have it as well. It's fairly cheap. For 50 grams, it's about $7.50. So it's not, that's US. So it's not too bad at all. So hopefully, and it's probably the milk you're using, and you don't know what the animals are being fed. If they're being fed silage, then that's the cause for the Clostridia late blowing. So, fortunately, we don't see much of it here in Australia because where I live anyway, and the milk I get supplied, they're all fed on grass. There's green grass all the time. Now, green grass doesn't have that bacteria present in it. It's only present when it's made into silage and fermented. So, maybe try another brand of milk as well if you can't get your hands on lysolac. Anyway, hopefully that answers your question, Walt. And it certainly was a doozy, and I had to go and do some research to find the answer. I have actually had late blown cheeses myself. One was a Parmesan, and it was a doozy. All that was left was a shell of the cheese. The rind of the cheese in the center was hollow. Crazy, and I didn't know at the time what it was all about. So now we all know. Anyway, thanks for the question. Next question is from Adam.
Hi, Gavin. This is Adam from California. I recently opened a cheddar that I made back in January. After letting it age in a ripening box, it started to develop some cracks. So on your recommendation, I went ahead and vac packed it. Well, the cracks sealed up nicely under vac packing, and I let it mature for about 6 months in the vacuum bag. At the end of the 6 months, I went ahead and cracked it open. I split it in half and had a taste. And I was surprised that it had a very mild flavor, almost like an Alpine-style cheese. And I vac packed half of it and put it back in my cheese cave. And the rest of it, I put it in a maturing box. And I noticed that over time, it started developing a more cheddary flavor. Have you finished cheeses in ripening boxes after vac packing them before? And do you recommend that to get different flavor profiles?
Well, thanks for your question, Adam. The answer is yes, I have done that. Some cheeses that come to mind that I initially vac packed was Havati. I vac packed it first, and then after about 3 weeks, then I let it because it was starting to flatten in the vac pack because it's a really soft cheese. And I pulled it out and put it in a ripening box, and it started to firm up, started to get a bit of a rind, and the flavour was amazing. Now, I didn't taste it when I took it out of the vacuum packing, so I'm not sure. Now, technically, the art of vacuum packing has only recently been used by cheesemakers, commercial cheesemakers anyway. And really, the cheese doesn't need oxygen to develop the enzymes that are produced that break down the fats and proteins within the cheese and give us the lovely flavors. However, it seems on the occasion that you noticed that by taking it out of the vacuum packing and exposing it to oxygen and putting it in a ripening box, it actually started to improve the flavour or deepen the flavour. So very interesting observation. I can't say I've actually observed that myself. And there really shouldn't be any reason why the cheese would slow down enzyme development just because it's vacuum packed. I've had cheeses aged from as little as 3 months, and they absolutely taste fantastic, and kind of as I expect anyway. So yeah, very unusual, but you've stumbled across something. I might have to experiment further and see what happens by vacuum packing them to avoid mold growth in the early stages of the cheese, and then maybe taking out of the vacuum packing a month before it needs to be and mature it naturally there and see what the difference is, and maybe have a test subject. One make 2 cheeses at the same time, exactly the same. Have one vacuum packed all the way, and then one take it out a month before. So that'll be very interesting too. But anyway, thanks for your question, Adam, and hope that helps, if anything. Anyway, we have one last question, and this one is from Randy. Now, Randy, I can't find a podcast episode that it was in, but I'm sure Randy interviewed me many moons ago about cheese making and stuff. He gave me a whole list of questions and stuff, and I think I used it for a podcast episode. But I went back and looked through my archive, and I cannot find where I posted the information. So if anybody can remind me what episode number Randy was talking in. Anyway, let's get on with Randy's question. It's a good one, and I've got a few solutions for him. Anyway, here he is.
Hi, Gavin. Some years ago, you allowed me to give you an interview, which I used for some studies at the time, and I wanted to thank you again for that. And I had an honest question for you. Lord willing, I'm hoping to get married in the next year, and for our reception, for the groom's cake, we're wanting to basically have a stack of a couple wheels of cheese, which is going to be great. But I would like to make at least one of the wheels, and I'm thinking one of the wheels is going to be a 5-kilogram cheddar. That's a lot of milk. I think that's approximately about 50 liters of milk. And my question to you is, for large batches of cheese, for the overzealous, if you have any recommendations as far as possibilities, if one could, I guess, make multiple batches of the milk at a time and let the other cheddars basically go through the cheddaring process a little longer while you're basically making the curds for the other batches. Just trying to find a way of doing this that's wouldn't involve my bathtub and breaking some just a lot of rules. Thank you again for everything you're doing. I love the channel, love what you're doing. This is Randy, by the way. Thanks again, sir.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it. I love your question too. And thanks for catching back up again. It's great. I do have a few solutions for you. Now, what you could do is obviously buy a big pot, but that may be troublesome to get that. And you could then heat the milk on a gas ring, one they use for when you go camping, and that might work. So 50 litres is, so what's 15 litres is 3 gallons, so that's 6, 9, 9.5, no, 9.5 gallons. Whew, that's a lot of milk. So, no, 9, yeah, 9, 10, it'll be 10.5 gallons. Oh, whatever. Anyway, it's 15 litres per 3 gallons, if that makes sense. So, what you could do is buy a big pot, obviously. And I'm sure that there would be some online somewhere, and you could heat the milk up using, like I said, a camping gas ring, a big gas burner, and pop the pot on top, and Bob's your uncle. You'd be able to do it all in one batch, and you would be able to press the cheese in a colander. Now, I've seen colanders. In fact, I've got one myself. It's stainless steel. It actually fits inside another pot, so it's like you can cook pasta in it. So it's two. So the main pot's stainless steel. The insert, which looks like a colander, it's got holes and stuff. You can cook pasta in that bit, pull it out, and then the pasta's all drained. I've actually got a 8-litre or 2-gallon pot, one insert like that, and that actually probably would make a 5-kilogram block of cheese. So if you can find yourself something like that and use that as the mold, you'd have to make a follower out of what is it? High-density polyethylene, which is most of those white chopping boards for food chopping boards are high-density polyethylene. It's a white plastic, so you could cut that out to be the same size as the colander, the pot colander, and that can be your pressing plate. Now, to get enough weight to press the cheese, that's going to be the hardest part. So you're going to have to devise some method to basically apply 50 pounds per square inch on top of that pressing plate. So it's going to be a lot of weight. So I'll leave that to your imagination. I do have a cheese making video where I show homemade cheese presses, but I don't think they're to that scale. So a lot of commercial operations actually use pneumatics to press the cheese. So they have a hydraulic press and basically squeeze the heck out of the cheese. So there's a few suggestions. Now, so that's on the grand scale. Okay, if you can't find a big pot, what you can do is get I would get three 3-gallon pots, and then just make 3 batches of cheddar. And then when it comes down to the end to do the cheddaring part, you're just going to have to find something to cheddar it in, the remaining curds, so you can cut the slabs and let them drain and all that sort of stuff. And then combine all those curds from those 3 batches together into a similar sort of stainless steel colander that I was talking about. You know, it's got straight sides, flat bottom, and like I said, you can cook pasta in it and pull it straight out, and Bob's your uncle, it's all drained. So there's some suggestions. Hopefully that'll get the creative juices flowing. And by the way, congratulations on your engagement and your upcoming marriage. Well done, mate. Obviously, college went well for you. Hope that answers your question, Randy, and I really do appreciate you coming back again and calling in and telling me what's going down. All righty. Now, I have just run out of voicemails. Randy was the last one that came in today, of all times. And so I'm after some more. Don't hold back. If you want to leave a voicemail for me, pop over to littlegreencheese.com, and there'll be on the right-hand sidebar, there's a little widget. Click on that, and you can record a voicemail, message, question, a shout out, say hello, what have you, and I will play it on the show. When I don't have any voicemails, I resort back to emails, and you'll have to hear my voice drone on for the entire show. And I'm sure you'd rather hear some questions being answered. So jump on. I'm sure there's lots of newbie cheesemakers out there that have a burning question that they'd like answered, even if it's been played before. My goodness, we've been doing 80 shows. I can't even remember what half the shows were about. So I don't expect anybody else to. So like I said, pop over to littlegreencheese.com and leave a voicemail using the right-hand sidebar, or any of the, there's a little widget in every show notes where you can just press record and record a message, and I'll gladly play them on the show. Whatever you do, don't put any personal information, as in your email address or what have you, into the message, because I can see that afterwards. You have to put that to post the message to me, so don't leave that, but leave your name. That would be lovely. Sometimes I have to guess. Anyway, well, thanks for all. Thanks to you. Thank you for popping by and having a listen or watch the show, as it's now streamed on live on YouTube as well. Not live, pre-recorded. But I really do appreciate you lending me your ears for the duration of about 30 minutes every week. It's been enjoyable to bring you the show, and we're up to 80 now, so only 20 till we reach 100. That's amazing. Can't believe I've been doing this for so long. Goodness me. Okay, now one last thing that I want to mention is that if you're not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I'm up to about 108,000 subscribers. If you subscribe to that channel, you'll get notified when each video comes out. I'm doing about three a week now. Goodness me. So 3 videos about cheese stuff every week. Usually it's a taste test or an update about a cheese. And most weeks we have a new cheese recipe. But I'm trying to find time to record those, because they take time, like over 2 weeks of recording just to do one 30-minute cheese making video tutorial. So there's a lot of time and effort that goes into making those tutorials. So don't miss them because you're not subscribed. So pop over to cheeseman.tv, that's the URL, and you'll be whisked away to my YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to the channel there. While you're at it, don't forget to sign up to the newsletter for littlegreencheese.com. If you pop over to that website, there's a little pop-up box that comes up, and you can sign up, and then you'll get notified of all the podcasts and any other blog posts that I post once a week on Fridays. I send a newsletter out. So you'll get that information if you've signed up, which is fantastic. Okay, that's about all we've got time for this week. Don't forget that if you're in the market for any cheesy kits, supplies, or equipment, then you couldn't do any worse than popping over to littlegreenworkshops.com.au, which is a lovely little online store run by myself and my lovely wife, Kim. So we do ship all over the world, except for probably about 5 countries that don't let us ship that sort of stuff into their countries. So we've had to block them. So, we ship everywhere, and any orders over $125 within Australia, we ship to most states and most capital cities free of charge. So check that out. Okay. You've been listening to Little Green Cheese Podcast. You can pick up my ebook, Keep Calm and Make Cheese, A Beginner's Guide to Cheese Making at Home, over at littlegreenworkshops.com.au, and also at all good ebook retailers like Amazon and Apple iBook Store. You can pick up cheese making equipment, supplies, and kits over at littlegreenworkshops.com.au. You can also see all of my video tutorials. There are over 250 of them now over at cheeseman.tv. Thanks for listening and watching, and I'll see you next time on Little Green Cheese Podcast. During the show, you've been listening to music by Kevin MacLeod. I played Malt Shop Bop, Call to the Dairy Cows, and the news theme. Well, thanks for all you YouTubers out there that have been watching the show. I do appreciate it. There are about 500 of you that watch these shows every week, which is fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit through an audio slant video sort of podcast episode. Because I don't have a producer helping me out to do these shows, Kim helps me produce the live show, of course. It's fairly static, and you're looking at a picture of me talking, basically, like this. Anyway, like I said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.